Japan, the land of the rising sun, a beautiful, awe-inspiring realm of ancient traditions and arcane mysteries that sit comfortably beside one of the most technologically advanced societies on the planet. However, deep beneath that, ingrained in Japanese culture and folklore, are the yurei, ghosts. Their name consisting of two kanji, yu, which means faint or dim, and rei, meaning soul or spirit, is a phrase synonymous with the abandoned and long lost places where locals fear to tread. And believe me, there's a lot of them. Kicking off at number 5, Building 2283, Okinawa. Throughout modern history and following the events of World War II, Japan has seen a large military occupation, the majority of which come from the US. Because of that, these collisions of culture have been met with some pretty spooky outcomes. One of those is Building 2283 at the Kadena Air Base, which is actually a single unit family home in a residential area, which was historically reserved for mid-grade officers and high-ranking civilians. Well, of course, no one lives there anymore, and the Kadena Air Base goes out of their way to make sure the building is eerily maintained. Whatever happened before the US moved in is unclear, but tales of a grisly murder are the main consensus. A number of families occupied the residence, but all of them soon reported the same stories. Water faucets and lights turning on and off by themselves, the sound of children laughing and crying just out of earshot, and the sight of a woman washing her hair constantly in the utility sink. Allegedly, the origin of the haunting comes from a family who occupied the house sometime in the late 70s, a teenage girl who was obsessed with keeping herself clean, and an abusive stepfather that stabbed her to death and then killed himself. Next up at number 4, Gridley Tunnel, Yokosuka. Again, another ghostly tale that comes from the military. The Gridley Tunnel on the Yokosuka Naval Base is a narrow, one-way tunnel that runs directly underneath a hill from Gridley Lane to Nimitz Boulevard, an access route running away from Yokosuka that was repurposed from an ancient fortification that existed before the modern naval base was built in the 1870s. Allegedly, the staggering amount of the exact same sighting is what has given this ghost its legend. As people drive through the one-way tunnel, they glance in the rearview mirror and see a bloody samurai chasing them. Some people have been so startled by the sighting that they've totaled their vehicle into the side of the tunnel, and the ghostly samurai often emerges on rainy nights between midnight and 1 AM. As the legend goes, the apparition is the ghost of a long dead samurai who was on his way to avenge the death of his feudal lord when he was ambushed by the same assassins and brutally killed. Allegedly, because he failed his mission of vengeance, he cannot leave the tunnel and is left to wander eternally. Coming in at number 3, the Hanging Ruins, Osaka. In the Shinsekai district of Osaka, there lies the remains of a burned out 4-story building that has eerily been dubbed by locals as the Hanging Ruins. As the legend goes, in the early 2000s, the apartment building burned out in a tragic fire, where it remained for years untouched and unrepaired. In 2005, an employee of a local spa located from across the ruins spotted a strange long object dangling from its roof. Well, the employee decided to call the authorities, who investigated and realized that the strange object was in fact a corpse. The next day, there was a mysterious pair of shoes dangling from where the body was found. A few years later, another local was passing by and they spotted what appeared to be a life-size doll hanging from the same rooftop. Eerily enough, it turned out to be yet another corpse, and yet again another mysterious pair of shoes were found dangling the next day. Eventually, curious folks started throwing pairs of shoes from the building in tribute to the mysterious corpses found there. As far as the residents of Osaka are concerned, there have been at least 3 bodies found in the Hanging Ruins, yet who they were or what they were remains a mystery.
Coming in at number 2, we've got Single Braid Road. What could be a reference to the shape of the road is actually a morbid description of a terrible death that supposedly occurred here. Let this be a lesson to you all. Don't jump from trains. Okay, I'll explain. Way back when, it's said that there was a young couple. The man had all of his paperwork sorted out, but the woman did not. She, being an illegal immigrant, was living a life a little on the edge. Partway through the journey, some police officers boarded the train in order to check everyone's passports and such. Realizing this would not end well for her, the young woman decided to hop off the train. Unfortunately, she had done her hair in a very structurally sound style that day, a single long braid. When she jumped out, her hair got caught in the window, ripping her scalp from her head and taking her face along with it. After having most of the skin on her head removed, she crawled her way to Single Braid Road and died there. Gruesome, right? Well, the story doesn't end there. Apparently, if you head down Single Braid Road, you might come across a young woman with a long braid. Only men can see her, supposedly. If you approach her, she'll turn towards you and reveal that she lacks any facial features. I'll leave you to imagine what might happen next. And finally, at number 1, we've got the Suicide Shopping Center. Look, I get it. Sometimes malls make me want to hop over the guardrail and into the fountain below. We've all been there. However, so many self-inflicted deaths have occurred at this shopping center, folks are starting to get suspicious. Since it opened in 2004, over a dozen folks have committed suicide outside of Liwan Plaza. Some say there's a mysterious presence that might give the unfortunate souls a little push. These claims are backed up by a variety of strange discoveries that occurred during the building of said plaza. See, while they were developing the land, 8 empty coffins were discovered buried below. They did their best to work around this seemingly cursed discovery, first by constructing the building to appear octagonal, and then by contacting a Taoist priest. When the holy man arrived, he let the others know that the coffins were meant to prevent evil from spreading in that area. The thing is, the coffins can't do that job if they're removed in the process of building a shopping center. Uh-oh. Seems that the strange noises and unfortunate deaths tended to drive customers away. It's too bad, isn't it? My goodness.
Number 5 on this list is the Higuan Opera House. This opera house is located in Beijing and has been standing there for quite some time. These days it acts as an opera house and a museum, regularly putting on various theater shows. However, it wasn't always used for this purpose. The building was constructed over 200 years ago in 1807, and back then it was a home for the poor. It was built by a philanthropist whose intentions were good, wanting to help those in need and give at least a few a roof over their heads. Problem was that the builders didn't do their research well enough, because this house for the poor was built directly on top of an ancient graveyard. The spirits of this ancient graveyard weren't too pleased that this building got put directly on top of them, and as you may expect, have been haunting it ever since. A ghostly apparition has never actually been seen here, but hundreds of visitors have heard noises coming out of thin air. The noises apparently sound as if somebody is screaming at the top of their lungs. This screaming can happen at any time and any place in this opera house, but it seems like the courtyard is tied the most to these reports. There's even a legend surrounding this courtyard. Locals say that if you pick up a stone and throw it in the courtyard, then this voice will directly scold you for doing so. It seems that this voice that scolds you is very scary to those that do this, because there's no reports of anyone picking up a second stone and throwing it again. I suppose all of this should teach you that if you ever intend to construct a big building, do some research on the ground that you're building on before you start. Number 4 on this list is the Songpo Library. This place is now a library, but like a lot of the haunted places on this list, that wasn't what its initial purpose was. It was initially someone's residence, Wu Sengyu. Wu Sengyu lived from 1612 to 1678 and was instrumental in the beginning of the Qing dynasty in China. He was a Chinese general for the Ming dynasty, but in 1644 decided that it would be in his best interest to betray that dynasty and switch sides. He did this by allowing the Manchu army safe passage through the Shanhai Pass, one of the passage points of the Great Wall. Had he not done this, the Ming Empire would still be standing, and Chinese history would be very different. Betraying an empire and etching yourself in Chinese history takes a lot of time and effort. This was obviously a lot for Wu, and balancing family with historical betrayal was a little bit too much for him to juggle. One thing had to give, and it was the family. So without so much as an explanation, he abandoned his lover, Chen Wanwan. Chen Wanwan, alone in this house and abandoned, fell into a deep depression and hung herself in this home. That's right, guys, even though this library has a deep history of a traitorous general, it's actually the ghost of his abandoned lover that haunts it. After her death, her spirit never left this place, and even when it was converted into a library, she still hung on. It's said that her ghost will occasionally show herself to visitors of this library if they're by themselves. She will have deep bruises around her neck, apparently from the rope that she hung herself with. She will also be crying, except not audibly. Tears will stream down her face, but she'll remain almost expressionless and just stare at those who she appears to. Anyone who has seen her has said that they were extremely unsettled by the vision and can never go back to that library again. Lots of the workers at this library don't last very long either, because after they see her, they immediately quit. Her appearance can be very disturbing, and for that reason, I don't recommend going to check this library out. Number 3 on this list is the Chaonei Church. Even though this place is often referred to as Chaonei Church, it's actually just a house that's located in the Dongchen district of Beijing. This place is widely known around China and has gotten the title of being Beijing's most celebrated haunted house. It got public acclaim when a horror movie called The House That Never Dies was released in 2014 and was set at that home. The whole origin of this house is pretty hazy with no official records explaining its exact construction. That being said, many people believe that a British priest was the first to start building it, but never actually finished the job because during the construction, he disappeared. After it never became a church, it was converted into a home for a political party member, but he rarely stayed there. Similar to the Songpo Library, his absence had a deep and dark effect on his wife's mental health, and she inevitably took her own life. Along with the priest's disappearance and the wife's death, 3 people who were working on the home are said to have disappeared while they were here, never to be seen again. All of these deaths and disappearances have contributed to the stories of this house's haunting. The most commonly spotted ghost here is that of the woman who took her own life. People are very scared of ever seeing her because they believe her ghost had something to do with the disappearance of those 3 construction workers. Almost everyone who walks by this house, even just on the outside, says that they feel an immense sensation of dread as they do. It's also reported that during the summer months, even if it's scorching hot outside, the second you pass through the doorway, everything gets super chilly, as if the home is void of life and feeling. Tunnels have also been discovered under this house, which just add to the lore and legend of this place. Unlike the Songpo Library, where the ghost will just appear and be disturbing, it seems like the spirits that dwell here are actually very dangerous, and for that reason, it should definitely be off your travel plans if you ever find yourself in Beijing.
Swinging in at number 2, the Doryodo Ruins, Tokyo. Doryodo, also referred to as the Haunted Temple of Hashioji and translates roughly to the End of the Road Temple, is known as one of the most haunted locations in Japan and has been host to some grisly and ghostly tales throughout its history, ever since it was first constructed in 1590. As one of its many legends goes, in 1963, an 82-year-old woman who was in charge of maintaining the site was approached by a robber. The woman tried to fight back against the criminal and was tragically killed as a result. Days later, locals reported the ghostly sounds of a woman sobbing in the forest, a spirit that was tragically bound to the ruins. Exactly 10 years later, in 1973, a female university student was caught up in an affair with her English literature professor, who was married and had 2 small children. When word of the affair got out, things ended tragically, and the professor ultimately killed the young girl, burying her body in a shallow grave at the site of the Doryodo ruins. It didn't end there though. The act of murder drove the professor to madness, and weeks later, the corpse of him, his wife, and his 2 children were found washed up by some nearby cliffs. To this day, locals have reported hearing a young woman whispering, "I'm here, I'm here," alongside the sound of an old woman sobbing. And finally, at our number 1 spot, Aokigahara Forest, Yamananshi. Of course, it has to be perhaps the most notorious and infamous location in the whole of Japan. Aokigahara Forest, also known as the Sea of Trees, is a beautiful location that historically has harboured a very dark and eerie past. Since the 1800s, the forest, which sits in the shadow of Mount Fuji, has had a reputation with being a gateway for the Yurei, the ghosts of the dead in Japanese mythology, and has been revered as a location and site for communicating with spirits. It was also connected to the ancient practice of ubusute, a mythical Japanese practice where an elderly person was taken to a forest to die. It wasn't until 1961 that the forest began its grisly reputation with suicide, when a famous Japanese writer, Seiko Matsumoto, penned the novel Nami no To, Tower of Waves, where the lead characters tragically committed suicide in the confines of the forest. In 2010, more than 200 people attempted to take their own lives in the forest, and tragically, that figure continues to rise as Japan struggles to confront its staggering suicide rate and battle with mental illness. Aokigahara Forest continues to be a human reminder of these lives lost and the tormented spirits that still linger there.
Number 5 on this list is the Hotel of Doom. Yep guys, there's literally a hotel in North Korea that's been nicknamed the Hotel of Doom. It sounds like something straight out of an Austin Powers movie, but I can promise you that Dr. Evil is not residing there. That's because the hotel itself, the largest building in all of North Korea, has never had a single guest in it ever. It's completely abandoned and never fulfilled its initial purpose of being the most prestigious hotel in North Korea. In fact, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, the 1,080-foot tall building is the tallest unoccupied building on the entire planet. 105 stories of just absolute nothingness. North Korea never finished the building because they just simply ran out of money. The whole country is estimated to have a gross domestic product of about $40 billion, and the building is estimated to take roughly $2 billion to finish. So, to finish this hotel, the country would need to allot 5% of all its money to get it done. Needless to say, it won't be happening anytime soon. Even though this Hotel of Doom isn't housing any human visitors, that doesn't mean that someone isn't putting it to good use though. Well, maybe someone is a poor choice of words. It might be better to say something. Since the exterior construction of it finished in 2008, there have been rumors circulating about some sort of creature living in this hotel. Not a physical being like a werewolf or a beast of some kind, but a shadow figure that floats throughout. A little bit like a Dementor from Harry Potter, but even less humanoid than those were. The sightings have been few and far between because no one ever goes into the hotel. It's only ever been spotted from the ground looking up. People have reported a sense of uneasiness when walking past this building, but the building itself is also very intimidating. North Korea doesn't have many buildings of this stature, so this one definitely sticks out like a sore thumb. If a shadow creature has taken up residence here, then it's honestly done pretty well for itself. In fact, it may own one of the most expensive, albeit unfinished, properties in all of North Korea. Number 4 on this list is the prisons. And yes, you did hear that properly, guys. Prisons as in plural, not just one, but all of them. North Korea is very secretive about everything that goes on there, so making a list about this country is pretty tough. Because of that, it's hard to identify one specific prison that's haunted, but based on the stories of these places, I'd honestly assume that all of them are. The amount of death that happens at North Korean prisons is actually messed up. In fact, a judge who survived Auschwitz said that these prisons are just as bad. The first section on Wikipedia in regards to these prisons writes, North Korean prison camps have conditions that are unsanitary, life-threatening, and are comparable to historical concentration camps. A significant number of prisoners have died each year since they are subject to torture and inhumane treatment. Public and secret executions of prisoners, even children, especially in cases of attempted escape, are commonplace. The mortality rate is exceptionally high because many prisoners die of starvation, illness, work accidents, or torture. There have also been reports that even if your father committed a crime, for instance, well, you'll also go to jail for it. Innocent people are being sent into these places with no due process and dying in these horrible and harsh environments all the time. Just how some of those German camps are haunted by those who were taken far too soon, I have to imagine that the same thing's going on here. Now, we don't know for sure, and there aren't any specific stories that have come to the light, but that's mostly because North Korea keeps all their info airtight, and there have only been a few stories that have even come out about survivors of this place. I feel like it goes without saying, but obviously, this is a spot that you should just never go. Number 2 on this list is the Tomb of General Wan. I found an excellent passage explaining the history surrounding this tomb written by Dong Huashi Weiji. He writes, General Wan Chong-hun is famous for his military command during the Ming Dynasty, where he almost single-handedly fought off the Manchu army in the 1630s. Despite the general's loyal efforts to protect the land and the imperial family, devious plots were planted in the emperor's ear, making him suspicious of Wan, and thus his life came to a tragic end when the emperor condemned him to death by 1,000 cuts. Wan is said to have stated before execution that his soul will always guard Luodong Peninsula. Tortured and severed into pieces, the people of Beijing were so upset with him for his accused disloyalty that they allegedly rushed to buy and eat his remains. His head, however, was salvaged by a faithful troop of Wan Weis who buried it at Guanshu Men, and his family has guarded it ever since. Whether he is seeking revenge or simply holding to his word and guarding the territory, the general is said to have been seen wandering around the area at night. First off, before I even talk about the haunting, I can't even imagine dying the way that Wan did. It's no wonder his spirit refuses to pass on. Not only was he falsely accused, but to die by 1,000 cuts, then get tortured, and then have your body be picked apart by the locals is truly horrendous. If he is still guarding the peninsula, then all the power to him, but I also completely understand if you need to get revenge after something like that. Regardless of his motives, I imagine that any threat towards this area would cause retaliation from his spirit, so probably best to play it safe and avoid the tomb at all costs. Number 1 on this list is the Qiu Mansion. The Qiu Mansion is one of the strangest and most unique ghost stories that I've ever heard. It all started with the Qiu brothers after World War II. They decided to move to Shanghai post-World War II in hopes of finding a better life. This was the best decision that they ever made because once they got there, they basically won the lottery. In the early days of living in Shanghai, the brothers stumbled upon an abandoned warehouse that was filled with cans of paint. At that time, the price of paint was very expensive, and this warehouse was as good as stumbling upon buried treasure. They sold the paint that they found and got a fortune for it. That's when they decided to build this mansion. They didn't stop at just spending their money like this though. The brothers had a taste for the lavish lifestyle. They bought a plethora of wild animals and had them live with them. Tigers, pumas, reptiles, and various other unconventional pets lived at this mansion. Until one day the brothers just disappeared. No one has any idea why they left or what happened to them, but they were just gone. With the mansion abandoned, some of the neighbors are said to have looted this space, and during their theft, they got carried away and murdered some of the animals. They didn't stop just there though, because it's even believed that they ate some of the animals after the fact. Now, what's left of this mansion is haunted by those same animals that were killed so many years ago. These animals aren't pleased with those that come here either. Workers who came to this mansion later have been said to have been attacked. In fact, some of them have been rushed to emergency rooms with bite and scratch marks from these ghostly beasts. People have reported seeing lizard-like things scurrying around the mansion and jungle cats standing at the top of the stairs looking menacing. I've never heard a story with a bunch of ghostly jungle animals before, but that's what we have here, and from all the reports, these creatures aren't the friendliest. Number 5 on this list is Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima is one of the many Bonin islands that is located in the Pacific Ocean, pretty far away from the Japanese mainland. There are actually several reasons why you should never visit this island aside from the fact that it's haunted. This island was the location of some very important battles in World War II fought between the United States and the Japanese. This island currently houses a Japanese military base of self-defense on it, and things were not that much different in World War II. The battle that the Japanese and the Americans had lasted for 40 days and thousands of troops died brutal deaths on its shores. The current troops who are stationed here have reported sightings of ghostly apparitions that look to be in World War II outfits. These are apparently the dead soldiers from all those years ago. Their souls have yet to leave this island and are rumored to be forever marching along its shores. Like I said before though, this haunting isn't the only reason you shouldn't go here. For starters, it's a military base of self-defense now and completely closed off to the public. If you were to go, then at the very least you'd be arrested for trespassing. You also shouldn't visit this place because it houses Mount Suribachi. Mount Suribachi is a 161 meter tall volcano that is currently considered to be the most dangerous volcano on the planet. It isn't as big as Yellowstone by any means, but it is far more active, and people believe that it is likely to erupt in the next 100 years. This would be extremely detrimental for the people on the island, but would also cause massive tidal waves that could end up killing thousands on the shores of Japan and China. This, coupled with the military base, coupled with the fact that undead World War II spirits still roam the grounds, makes this place a hard pass for me. Number 4 on this list is the Whispering Tunnel. The Whispering Tunnel is honestly kind of scary as it is, a long thin tunnel that is super dark and doesn't look very well kept. The scare factor is multiplied exponentially though when you throw in the fact that there's a ghost who's haunting it. Now there are multiple stories associated with this tunnel, the two biggest ones involving a murder. One story depicts the tale of a young girl who was brutally murdered as she was passing through the tunnel, and now her spirit is said to haunt the tunnel. The other story talks about how a group of sick teenagers murdered a 21-year-old in the tunnel by burning him and leaving his remains there to be found later. There are also some ties to some ancient Buddhist monks who believe this area was simply a hotspot for spirits and all things paranormal. It's possible that none of these things are true, but it's also possible that all of them happened, and with the reports of the ongoings in this tunnel, I tend to lean to the latter. People who pass through this tunnel often don't make it to the end. Now that's not because the spirits have murdered them or taken over their soul or anything like that, but they've reported saying that they just can't force themselves to make it through. There have been countless reports of a serious foreboding presence the further you go into the tunnel, as if the air gets thick with a dark spirit and your innate senses tell you to stay away. It's also been said that people have felt the sensation of being pushed or pulled before, typically in the direction of where they entered. Also, considering this is called the Whispering Tunnel, there have obviously been reports of whispers and scratches. These whispers often sound like those of a little girl, further pushing the narrative that a girl has been murdered here. Truly a terrifying tunnel that probably isn't worth the scary walkthrough. Number 3 on this list is Camp Camp Hansen. The legend associated with Camp Hansen is also sometimes referred to as the Lone Soldier. Camp Hansen is a United States Marine military base that is located in Okinawa. The camp currently has over 6,000 American troops stationed there to this day. It should also be noted that this was an area of interest in World War II, similarly to our other entry of the island of Iwo Jima, and saw its fair share of death. One soldier's soul seems to have clung onto this place though, and doesn't seem to want to leave. The camp has several gates to get inside, but the one under particular scrutiny here is Gate 3. It's at this gate that the ghost of a dead World War II soldier will appear. It's said that he will show himself to you and be wearing a World War II outfit that is covered in blood, seemingly the outfit that he died in. He will approach you and ask you for a cigarette, and then if you give it to him, quietly smoke alongside you until he's done. From my research, this ghost isn't evil in nature and doesn't want to harm you, he simply wants a smoke. But soldiers that got positioned at this gate started to get extremely creeped out. So much so that the gate has actually been shut down and is no longer in service. The amount of stories that people have compiled about sightings and interactions with this ghost was so much that the people who run the base thought it was best to leave the man be and just shut the gate down for good. This camp, and more specifically the gate, is considered by most to be one of the most haunted places in all of Japan.
Number 3, the Forbidden City. The Forbidden City. Well, that tracks. That sounds very forbidden. Well, back in the 14th century, when it stood as the heart of the Ming dynasty and served as an imperial palace, yeah, you'd have a pretty difficult time getting access if you were but a common serf like myself. But I think they've relaxed their stance just a little bit, because I found more than a few Google recommended articles for tourist things to do in the Forbidden City. I think they just charge like price of admission now. So it's actually very easy to get into the Forbidden City, and the Chinese government does know about this. So the formerly Forbidden City, which is not quite as catchy a name, is a beautiful tourist spot and definitely worth checking out. It's got years upon years of culture and rich history behind it, and most importantly, it's said to be very haunted. The Forbidden City is a pretty credible place for a haunting, if I must say. Ghosts are said to be born out of a place of malice, and the Forbidden City has over 600 years of deaths, assassinations, and who knows how many backstabs and plot twists where the intrigue are out there. The most recurring ghost story coming out of the Forbidden City, though, is that there's a ghost of a weeping woman, all dressed in white, wandering during the dark hours. Following her is a lingering flute playing. Visitors claim at times they see ghost dogs that run through corridors at the edge of the city, digging up ghost bones. Some travelers report feeling an indescribable strangeness while wandering through the temples. Could it just be they're overcome with beauty and majesty of one of the wonders of the world, or is there spectral energy floating through the air? Before we move off on this one, I want you to take a look at this. A travel blog from Vancouver posted about their experiences traveling through the Imperial City. They noted how odd it was that all the doorways had a raised platform. The guide told them that was a way to confuse ghosts to keep them out. They took tons of photos, but only one stood out for them when they came back. See anything suspicious? Like a ghostly figure just kinda hanging right there in the center? Ugh. Number 2, Dead Fengmin Village. Coming up next on this list is going to be Fengmin Village. Fengmin Village is sometimes known as Dead Fengmin's Village, which is not exactly the most welcoming name you want to hear, but there's a pretty good reason for it though. The village itself is about as dead as a village can be, long abandoned by an unknown tribe. It's located in the valley of a nameless mountain in northern China's Henan province. An abandoned city left in a nameless mountain. It seems like it's the start of a chosen one, like heroic journey out there, start of a quest. The surrounding landscape is supposedly quite beautiful. A flowing brook, a lush forestry and trees, and buildings from the Qing dynasty. 39 buildings, 200 rooms, all of them left completely vacant. And the weird part? No one even knows why. There is extremely little information to be found on Fengmin Village. Who lived there, what happened to them, and so on, making it absolutely rife for urban legends of hauntings and ghosts. It's a fairly popular spot for backpackers and hikers with an interest in the supernatural who are looking to discover something in the lost village. One story tells of a hiker named Maitreya who would make expeditions out to Fengmin Village, camping alongside the river just outside with a few companions. On one of his treks, he got the bright idea in the middle of the night to prank his companions by jumping and scaring them, which, let me just say, I absolutely have to respect that. You're camping out in an abandoned ghost village, you have to seize the opportunity to prank your friends just a little bit. Well, before he got a chance, he got served up his own scare, because he swears a discordant, sad-sounding voice kept calling his name out over and over, in a voice he said he couldn't recognize or had never heard before. and none of his friends had any idea what he was talking about. At number 1, Chaonei 81. Our next entry is Chaonei number 81, a building that has a fairly notable reputation, being listed as the most haunted building in Beijing. It's Beijing's most famous haunted house. The ghost most commonly reported in this house is that of a woman who was the wife of an officer in the National Revolutionary Army during the Chinese Civil War in the late 1940s. He had fled to Taiwan with his compatriots before the end of the war and left his precious wife behind. Naturally, she was pretty upset about this. She was despondent. She felt that without her husband, she had nothing left to live for and thusly took her own life. And her spirit has been trapped in the house ever since. Residents who live around the area claim that during thunderstorms you can hear shrill, violent screaming coming from inside the house. Visitors report that walking into the house immediately, you feel a cold chill come over you and a feeling of inescapable dread. Not good. Not good to feel those things. There are stories of people going inexplicably missing connected to this mysterious house. One notable story is that of a British priest who is said to have initially built the property to serve as a church who went missing shortly before it was finished. When an investigation was launched to look for him, they supposedly discovered a secret tunnel that led to a neighborhood in the northeast, and the priest's body was never discovered. Now, another story was that 3 construction workers in the basement of a neighboring building weren't paying attention to what they were doing and broke through a thin wall leading into building 81. They went through the hole and the 3 of them vanished. And now there are people who conspire that this event is what led the government to cancel its plans to demolish the building for fear that it might be haunted. And it hasn't been yet because it's still standing there, and you're more than welcome to visit. You can take a guided ghost tour if you're feeling brave enough, and hopefully you come back.
Coming in at number 5, we have Stalin's country house. Stalin spent 4 months every summer at his country home between 1943 and 1953. Located near downtown Sochi, his time here put his town on the map forever. For anyone unfamiliar with Stalin, he was a dictator for the Soviet Union from the 1930s until his death in 1953. He was responsible for the genocide of around 20 million people. His house had been mostly kept the same, and tours are given about the history of his life. The house gives insight into his life and mindset. Part of the home is even a hotel where people can sleep in the same room as the man who created so much destruction. He demanded the house be made completely green so that it could blend in with the surroundings and he would be harder to find. He also refused to have any carpets in the home. He wanted to hear intruders' feet on the stone floor if someone was approaching him. He was clearly paranoid even when summering in his country home. He worked from his office during the night with a phone connected directly to Moscow and would sleep during the day. He often changed the room that he slept in so that nobody would know exactly where he was. Stalin's height was around 5'5", which might not seem important, but it was reported that he had short man syndrome. Due to this, and it's reflected in the build. His pool was only 5 feet deep as opposed to the typical 8 feet deep. The house is eerie and unpleasant for many reasons. Not only can you see into the dark mind of the dictator, but you might catch a glimpse of the man himself. People have seen him walking around the home in his white jacket and smoking his trademark pipe. Some have heard footsteps walking around at night. The noise echoes through the home. Those who have stayed there have said the air can feel terrifying at times, like you're being watched or like you're not welcome. Because you're not. Coming in at number 4, we have St. Michael's Castle. St. Michael's Castle was built in 1801 for royal residents in St. Petersburg. The castle interestingly looks different from each angle as the architects used various styles. It was built like a fortress as the royal family was in fear of assassination. This turned out to not be enough, and their fears were validated when Paul I was assassinated. He has moved into the castle 40 nights earlier. He was attacked in his bedroom by a group of dismissed officers. They tried to force him to sign his abdication from the throne. He resisted and the attackers continued. He was succeeded by his son, Emperor Alexander I. After Paul's passing, the family returned to the Winter Palace. The castle was gifted to the army in 1823. In the early 1990s, it became a museum. It is considered that Paul's spirit is now trapped, unable to leave the castle. It seems to be very restless and is often seen by visitors to the museum. He has mostly been seen walking down corridors carrying a candle. Others have claimed to hear distant screams from closed-off parts of the castle. It echoes in the wall like a whisper. People have reportedly tried to celebrate the spirit and speak with it to bring it peace, but after all these years, it still appears to be restless and angry about what happened all that time ago. Coming in at number 3, we have House on the Embankment. The House on the Embankment is a block-wide apartment building that was built in 1931. With the relocation of the capital from St. Petersburg to Moscow, there was an increase in housing demand for civil servants. The apartments were luxury for their time, including telephones, central heating, and high ceilings. When the Great Purge happened in the late 1930s, the residents were detained in their homes. During this time, the building was referred to as the House of Preliminary Detention. As well as the residents, they would bring people they had detained elsewhere and force them into the apartments. Reports say that the apartments hold up to 5 sets of occupants at one time. During this time, over half of the original residents disappeared. It is believed they had been taken away, but no one ever knew they were simply never seen again. In present day, there are 505 apartments within the building, some used as offices, as well as theatres, restaurants, and retail stores. The Great Purge left a mark on the building that it may never shake. Many executions were performed on the premises during this time. It is believed that the building is full of ghosts, victims of that time that cannot move on. Residents have seen paranormal things from within their home that they cannot explain. Some have seen things in the corner of their eyes. It appears like someone is walking around their home, but when they turn to see, they have gone. One terrified resident even reported seeing a man at the end of their bed, staring at them as they slept. When they jumped up from fear, the man disappeared. From all the stories we hear, it seems like the old residents are still attempting to live in their homes, lost and confused about what happened to them.
Number 2. Inunaki Island. Deep within the mist-shrouded mountains of Japan lies a place that chills the souls who dare speak its name, Inunaki Village. This cursed and forsaken village holds a dark legend that scares even the bravest paranormal enthusiasts. According to the folklore, Inunaki Village was once a thriving community, but a series of horrific events would lead to its downfall. The villagers were driven to madness by an unknown force, descended into depravity, practicing dark rituals and unspeakable acts of cruelty. You get us up to the Patreon if you want to hear about all the unspeakable acts, all the stuff that's too unspeakable for YouTube. Their actions attracted the attention of malevolent spirits, which descended upon the village, claiming the lives of everyone. Since that fateful day, Inunaki Village has been enveloped in eternal darkness. The streets run rampant with poltergeists and all manner of spiritual prankster. Legend has it that those who are daring enough to venture into the village are forever trapped, doomed to be tormented by the restless souls, and eventually join the Legion back there. Whispers of the village's legends echo through the forest, warning travelers of the malevolence inside. The air is thick with an otherworldly presence, and the sounds of disembodied voices fill the night. Witnesses claim to have seen shadowy figures lurking among the dilapidated houses, their eyes filled with anger. It's said to be a place where time stands still, macabre secrets locked away from the world. Now, those who have entered its boundaries report all these things like sudden drops in temperature, a feeling of being watched, scratches appearing on their bodies. The anguished cries of the torment souls who met their gruesome fate reverberate through the darkness. Inunaki Village stands as a reminder of the depths of human darkness and the consequences that follow, and it serves as a warning for those who hear its name. I personally probably wouldn't go, but I recommend you might, and hey, if nobody's living there except ghosts, I'm willing to bet you can probably get an amazing deal on a 1-bedroom there. Might be worth looking into investing. Number 1, Hashima Island. And finally, we've come to our conclusion with Japan's Hashima Island, which is commonly known as Gunkanjima Battleship Island. It is a small, abandoned island located approximately 15 kilometers off the coast of Nagasaki. The island's most distinctive feature that you'll recognize is that it looks like a battleship, hence the nickname Battleship Island. It's not just because they love the Milton Bradley Company over there. Hashima Island was once a thriving coal mining community during Japan's industrialization period. In the early 20th century, Mitsubishi developed the island to extract coal from the island's rich undersea mines. As the demand for coal increased, the population on the island grew as well. To accommodate this growing workforce, high-rise apartment buildings were constructed, making this island one of the most densely populated places in the world at the time. Imagine how bad the rent was here. Now, eventually the island got just too saturated in the 50s. With the decline of coal mining in the 70s, the island's viability decreased and Mitsubishi shut down the mines. The inhabitants left, with nothing left on the island but dust and echoes. Hashima Island still perseveres on. Decaying buildings, rotting concrete, dilapidated roads, decrepit remains of what used to be a bustling community. Do I have another synonym for rotting? Not sure, but if you've got a thesaurus handy, leave one in the comments. The remnants of daily life have been left untouched, leaving behind a very ghostly atmosphere that evokes feelings of stuff like Chernobyl. Now, access to most of the island is very prohibited. The place is deteriorating fast, and local government worries that, any unsupervised intrusion will cause future damage. So there are some incredibly limited guided tours for those looking to wander amidst the memories. And Hashima Island definitely has an appeal to it. It's captured the interest of photographers, filmmakers, all sort of drawn to that post-apocalyptic look. And it serves as a nice, poignant reminder of the rapid industrialization and subsequent decline that characterized Japan's history and the human stories that unfolded within its concrete walls. And what's scarier than thinking about how industrialization and the capitalist machine will eventually kill all of us? Nothing, except maybe like a ghost. A ghost is pretty scary.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the Lotus Pond. Across all cultures, bodies of water are considered scary in some way or another. Ships have sunk, people have drowned, bad weather has brewed, etc., etc. There's a certain mysticism to water, and we as human beings are fascinated by it. Of course, water on its own can't be scary. We've got to add something else to the mix. How about water plus adultery plus murder? Everyone's got to be afraid of at least one of those things. All classic themes. So here is the tale of the Lotus Pond. One day, a young woman was waiting for her boyfriend by a lotus pond. As she waited and waited, she got more impatient. He was making her wait, the bastard. After a while, she decided to look around and see if he had maybe been waiting for her at the wrong spot. During her search, she discovered something quite awful. Her lover was away loving someone else. As one might imagine, she did not take this news well. In a fit of sorrow, she threw herself into the Lotus Pond and drowned. Nobody knows what happened to her boyfriend, but I think it's safe to assume that the next time he walked by the pond, her spirit dragged him into the murky water. These days, it's said that if a couple plans to meet by the Lotus Pond, they'd better be very careful. The ghost of the girl will call out to any boy nearby, and if he even so much as looks towards the water, he'll be drowned. And that's what you get for even looking, you dirty dog. Now, the Lotus Pond has such a bad reputation that many folks refuse to go near it. And if you do decide that it would be a great spot for a picnic, you'd better bring your horse blinders. If you hear a girl calling out near this pond, don't respond, don't look, hell, don't even turn towards the sounds, unless you really, really like chilling below the water. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Poor, Poor Maid. Who's ready for some more adulterous urban legends? So this one's a little more macabre than the jilted pond dweller. This story comes from one of the preeminent Chinese supernatural writers, Gan Bao. Apparently his father was a bit of a womanizer and had maintained a long-running affair with one of the family's maids. This didn't sit well with Gan's mother, who begrudgingly allowed it to happen for years. However, when the father died, she decided to take revenge. The family had a tomb made for Bao's dad, meant to eventually house the mother as well, but when old Daddy-O was buried, the mother also had the maid buried with him, alive. That's some hardcore revenge right there, don't you think? For years, the maid remained underground in the tomb, unbeknownst to anyone other than the mother. Then, 10 years after the death of the father, the mother joined him in the afterlife. Gan Bao had the tomb opened up so they could place her body there as well, and came across an unpleasant surprise. Firstly, he never knew that his mother had the maid buried alive, so there's that little shock to start us off. But amazingly, she was still alive. Emaciated and weak for sure, but alive nonetheless. She was nursed back to relative health and questioned about her survival tactics. Had she been crawling out for sustenance and then returning to the tomb out of some self-flagellating guilt? Had she foraged for grubs and wastewater? In the end, the only explanation she could give was that the ghost of the father had brought her all she needed to survive for years. I suppose he felt bad that his wife had punished this young worker in such a horrible way. Nobody has seen any ghosts walking around with food and water near the tomb since, but folks definitely keep an eye out just in case. Coming in at number 3, we've got the last bus. In the same way that fears related to water and adultery cut across all cultures, it seems that late night public transit has a similar legacy. And really, why wouldn't it? Being in an enclosed space that is difficult to immediately exit late at night, traversing potentially unfamiliar terrain, is fertile ground for horrifying happenings. And just such a happening makes up the bones of this urban legend. In the mid-90s, a bus was heading to Beijing's fragrant hills. As it trucked along, 2 men attempted to flag it down. This was odd, considering that they were not at a bus stop, but the driver was feeling generous that day. Turns out there were 3 men, 2 of which wore traditional ancient robes, and 1 more who was being held up by the other 2. As the bus rolled along, it slowly emptied until there were only 2 passengers left, not counting the 3 latecomers. A young man and an old woman both sat there looking at these pale passengers. Suddenly, the old woman accused the young man of stealing her wallet and demanded that the bus driver let them off so they could take this matter to the police. When they got off, the man was furious. Not only had she falsely accused him of committing a crime, she had also had them get off in the middle of nowhere. Not even a police station was nearby. However, she had a good reason to cry wolf. She'd noticed something nobody else had. The three men had no legs. They'd been floating at the height of standing men and therefore must have been ghosts. Who knows what might have happened if they'd stayed on that late night bus with the three phantoms.
Number 2 on this list is the Roundhouse Schoolhouse. Now, the Roundhouse Schoolhouse is an abandoned schoolhouse in Japan that was constructed in a perfect circle. The exterior of the building looks super eerie, and the fact that desks and school supplies still remain inside of it adds to the overall creepiness. The schoolhouse was built back in 1906 and operated as any schoolhouse would until 1970 when it closed down for economic reasons. Now, what's interesting about this school and the hauntings that are associated to it is that there doesn't seem to be any big inciting incident to cause ghosts to take up residence here. Typically, we hear something about a murder or something of that nature that caused a spirit to haunt that particular place. This schoolhouse doesn't have any of that. It was a regular school right up until it closed. However, that didn't stop ghosts and demons from calling it home after people left it behind. Rumors started circulating about this place and how people who stumbled upon it had heard screams or seen ghostly apparitions looking down on them from the windows. Soon it became a spot of interest to people seeking a paranormal thrill, but these thrill seekers were met with something that they weren't prepared for. People started going, and when they came back, it was as if they'd been through a battle. They were shell-shocked. They told tales of how they felt frozen where they stood and how it felt as demons were invading their thoughts when they were there. Some people who went there came back on the verge of complete insanity, as if their mind had been pushed to a place of no return. It seems like this place is host to a plethora of ghosts and demons, and I wouldn't recommend going there unless your mind is up to the task. Number 1 on this list is the Aokigahara Forest. Now, this forest is commonly referred to as the Forest. Located very close to Mount Fiji, this forest boasts a plethora of large trees that are sometimes called the Sea of Trees and are truly a masterpiece of nature. Sadly, this forest has quite the sad history to accompany all of this beauty. You've most likely heard about this forest due to the scandal that happened with Logan Paul several years ago. Him and his team went into this forest to film a video, came upon a dead body of somebody who had committed and were extremely insensitive to the entire situation. This is just one of the instances of how the forest got its name, but since the early 1900s there have been countless times that have been committed here. In fact, are so prevalent there that there's even a sign at the entrance of the forest reminding people that life is a precious gift. Taking one's life isn't the only thing that's happened at this forest though. This was also a place used to practice yubatse, which is a horrible thing. This is where you take an elderly person out in the middle of nowhere and just leave them there to die. Apparently, this forest used to be used as a place where people would do this. Through all of this death, the trees and the branches, they don't house just birds and animals anymore. They're deeply haunted as well. So many scary tales have been reported in this forest. A common report is a blood-curdling scream that can be heard throughout the entire area. People think that these blood-curdling screams are coming from the yurei, which are spirits of the dead who have died at sea. Typically, these creatures take on the form of a humanoid fish thing with long black hair. Other strange sightings have happened here as well. Vice was doing a documentary of the forest and stumbled upon a very scary skeleton-like doll that was nailed upside down into the tree in a strange crucifixion-like manner. The crew filming believed that this was a curse left behind by somebody who had died there and wanted to stay away from that doll as much as possible. There have also been many sightings of apparitions in this forest, and some of them have even been caught on camera before. Not to mention that if you're walking through this forest, you may just stumble on somebody who's committed. This forest is overflowing with paranormal activity, and I personally wouldn't recommend visiting. Number 5 on this list is the Green Hills Hotel in the town of Ebino. Currently out of business, this hotel hasn't been allowing visitors since it closed down in 1992. The hotel was already under speculation of being haunted simply due to its eerie exterior and its slow corrosion. That didn't stop 2 men from exploring it last year though and finding something extremely unsettling. The 2 boys were in search of ghosts at this hotel and wanted to see if any of the rumors were true. They initially noted feelings of anxiety when they entered the building, but that skyrocketed when they got to the 6th floor. Entering one of the guests' bedrooms, they found a corpse lying on the bed and staring up at the ceiling. The corpse had long pants on, a short-sleeved shirt, and gray hair. What makes this story so unsettling though is that the corpse had been there for such a long period of time that it's still unknown what the gender of the individual was. The body had decayed to such a state that it is thought to have been there for years. How this person got to this abandoned hotel and then died there is currently unknown, but it has reignited the fire that the location is haunted. Right now it's currently off limits, and for good reason. Further individuals who have stepped into this hotel have also reported those deep feelings of anxiety that the other two boys did. Perhaps the individual who was found on floor 6 is still haunting those walls to this day. Number 4 on this list is the Iro Ryokan Inn. Similarly to the previous entry, this hotel is out of commission, but that hasn't stopped people from risking their safety and visiting it. A once beautiful spot for travelers 30 years ago, this hotel is a shell of its former self due to the suicide that occurred decades prior. The former landlady of this hotel was a kind woman who lived a fulfilling and happy life, or at least that's what people thought. She killed herself 30 years ago by drinking a fatal amount of poison and dying in the walls of her hotel. Since then though, her spirit has never left. After her death, the hotel attempted to remain open for a few more years, but eventually it had to shut down due to the haunting. This lady's spirit has a grip hold over this place and made it very clear to anyone who entered that they were unwelcome. An apparition resembling her would often be seen in the corridors, screaming and crying at the top of her lungs. Many guests reported that a vision of her was stalking them the entire time that they were there, and that they felt very unsafe. There was a thought that they would simply tear down this old hotel at one point, but the people in charge heard a ghostly cry warning them not to. To this day, the ruins still stand there completely abandoned except for the old landlady's spirit who continues to haunt the halls. At number 3, we have the Road International Hotel in Narita. This hotel is still functioning and can be stayed in if you like, however I wouldn't advise it. In 1999, the hotel, and more specifically room 1272, was the site of an amateur mummification. In Japan at that time, there was a cult group called Lifespace. One of the key members was a 61-year-old man named Koji Takahashi. After suffering a fall in the bathroom and a bad hit to the head, Koji had to go to the hospital. While he was there, it was discovered that he had a very severe cerebral hemorrhage and needed constant hospital care. Disagreeing with this, he had some fellow cult members, including his son, bring him to the Road International Hotel and begin a ritual on him that would save him from his ailment. This ritual was named by the group Shaky Pats and had them gently touching his body in an effort to cleanse it. This obviously did not work, and Takahashi died soon afterwards. His death was no deterrent though, as this ritual went on for 4 more months in this hotel room. Even though the smell of rotting flesh and a decomposing body filled the air, the remaining cult members claimed that he was still alive. After roughly 5 months of ceremonies being performed on this decaying body, the police finally broke into the hotel room and arrested everybody involved. They didn't come fast enough though, because 5 months was long enough for Takahashi's spirit to cling on to that specific hotel room. Now, guests of that room consistently report hearing strange sounds coming from apparently nowhere. They also say that they hear the drops of water or running tap water, but when they go and check the washroom, nothing was left on. After having a dead body decompose for 5 months in that room, it's no wonder that this hotel is haunted. Number 2 on this list is the Nakagushu Hotel ruins. These hotel ruins lie only 50 meters away from Nakagushu Castle. Even though this was supposed to be a hotel, it didn't serve its purpose very well because it's only ever housed 1 guest. The building of this hotel started roughly 50 years ago in the 1970s against the strong pushback from the Buddhist monks in the surrounding area. The local monks consistently warned the owner of this project to build elsewhere because the site he had chosen was on top of some ancient and sacred graves. The monks believed that building this hotel would anger the spirits of these past souls, and they would enact revenge on the members of the hotel. The owner of this site refused to heed their warnings and decided to prove them wrong by spending a night by himself in the half-built hotel. When people found him the next morning, he had completely descended into pure madness, with some even referring to him as being demented. He was so far gone that he had to be admitted to an asylum and treated by professionals. After this incident, the building was halted and it's never been resumed. Today the site is full of vegetation and growth and slowly crumbling to the ground from general decay. Locals still believe that it's haunted with the ancient spirits that were angered 50 years prior, and it's been ruled off limits for visitors. Number 1 on this list is the Akasaka Weekly Mansion. This spot has got to be the most dangerous on this list. This hotel is located in downtown Tokyo and is considered to be one of the most haunted spots in the country. What makes this place so haunted is just how many atrocities it has become home to. From deaths, to suicides, to even kidnappings, the walls of this hotel have seen some horrific things. Guests here have reported several different unique, strange occurrences from their stay. A common report is white mist flowing through the air vents and filling your room. The mist is cold and changes the temperature of that room, so you're practically freezing. Guests have also said that figures will appear in their rooms in the night. This can be at the foot of their bed or in the doorway. Sometimes these shadowy figures just stand and watch, but some guests haven't been that lucky. One woman described standing up and then having this being push them back on the bed, paralyzing them so that they couldn't fight or run away. Another guest describes an incident where they saw a shadowy creature and tried to run to the door. This devilish apparition tripped them to the ground and dragged them by their legs back into the room. They proceeded to attack this individual until they had decided that they had had enough. The person staying in this room came out about this story the next day and showed off her back where she had countless scratches that resembled some strange looking claws. Somebody finally had the bright idea to tear down this hotel. However, instead of leave the area alone, they built another hotel directly on top of it called the My Stays Premier. Similar reports from that hotel have been shared since they switched over. Whether it's the land itself or the horrors that this area has seen previously, something is not right about this hotel in Tokyo. Number 3 on this list is Kim Jong-il's tomb. Kim Jong-il was the leader of North Korea for almost 20 years before passing in 2011. The Qiu Mansion Memorial Palace is a massive palace that used to house the initial ruler of North Korea, Kim Jong-il's father, Kim Il-sung. Once he died though, this massive place was converted into a mausoleum to respect the great leader and then later his son as well. This place is creepy as all holy hell though, and is definitely haunted by these old leaders. Let's just take a quick look at what they currently have Kim Jong-il chilling in. It's this massive all glass container that he's been mummified in. His embalmed body just lies there all the time, and it's actually a tourist attraction now. North Korea has opened this up to the public if you want to go and pay your respects to their great leader. If you do go, which I don't recommend doing because it's super creepy and kind of weird, but if you do, then ABC News writes, all visitors are required to pass through jets of air to cleanse them of dust. Tourists are required to bow at the feet and arms of the dead father and son. However, they are not permitted to bow at the head as it's considered disrespectful. Cameras and phones are not allowed. Apparently, the ghosts of these 2 former North Korean leaders haunt this place, and people have seen their spirits wandering around the building. Kim Jong-il and his dad weren't the greatest of guys when they were alive, so I can only imagine that going to visit them in spirit form probably isn't going to be too much better. Number 2 on this list is the 38th parallel. The 38th parallel, according to Google, is a circle of latitude that is 38 degrees north of Earth's equatorial plane. It crosses Europe, the Mediterranean Sea, Asia, the Pacific Ocean, North America, and the Atlantic Ocean. The 38th parallel north formed the border between North and South Korea prior to the Korean War. This 38th parallel is actually a demilitarized zone between North and South Korea now. This area is really difficult to get across though for your average Joe. It's riddled with landmines, and on either side of the borders there's a sizable military presence just waiting to strike if you do attempt to do anything. Regardless of how dangerous it is to cross though, many North Koreans have attempted to get through this zone and into South Korea to try and escape their current life that they have in their own country. Over the years since this zone has been there, many North Korean citizens have risked their lives trying to get across this place. There have even been stories of people getting in vehicles and just gunning it as fast as they can, hoping to get to the other side. If they do manage to make it the whole way, then South Korea is typically sympathetic to their cause and will invite them into their own country as a Korean citizen. Many of them don't make it though. They're usually gunned down and stopped before they can make it far at all from their own country. Because of this, it's believed this area is haunted by the ghosts of those who tried to make it across and couldn't. These people were so close to salvation but just couldn't quite make it the last little bit, and now their souls forever remain here wishing they could have just pushed a little bit further. Not many people have seen them because this is a super hard area of the world to get to, but those who have said that they look to be in sheer agony, that they cry out and reach for those that they seize in an attempt to get these people to save them. For more reason than one, I don't recommend going to the 38th parallel. Number 1 on this list is Sinchon. The North Korean town of Sinchon is located in the South Hwanghae province of North Korea. This town was apparently the site of what is referred to as the Sinchon massacre. Now the reason that I use the word apparently there is because this massacre is kind of all up in the air. The North Korean government claims that from the 17th of October to the 7th of December, the United States military killed just over 30,000 North Korean citizens. This next part was actually released by the North Korean Central News Agency in 1998, and fair warning, it's pretty graphic in its detail. They say the American soldiers drowned over 2,000 innocent people by dropping them from Soktan Bridge. They also drowned more than 1,000 women in Sowon Reservoir. Upwards of 1,200 patriotic-minded people detained in an ice warehouse were bitten to death by military dogs. The headmaster of Younghae-won of Jungsan Primary School was sawed up alive. They even talk about how the American soldiers performed horrible atrocities on children, but I actually can't even say how they described it on YouTube, or else this video would definitely get taken down. Now, even though this is what the North Koreans have come out and said, the South Koreans heavily dispute this. They say that it was the Korean right-wing extremists and communists who performed these killings. Regardless of who was actually responsible though, or the true death toll figures, something horrible did take place in this town. The atrocity here left its mark, and it's believed that those who were killed haunt this place to this day. The innocent souls still wander around this town and can't find peace. Glowing orbs and ghostly apparitions are regularly spotted here. It isn't just one ghost or one type of ghost either, but a horrifying variety. Men, women, children, ghost-like figures have been spotted of all of them before. Definitely not a cute and quaint town that you would want to visit if you ever did find yourself here.
Number 5, Fengdu Ghost City. Fengdu Ghost City. Well, right off the bat, I feel like this is probably a spooky place. You don't name cities Ghost City unless there's a good reason for it. Well, the good reason is that the city got its name during the Eastern Han Dynasty. 2 imperial nobles, Yin Changshen and Wang Fengpin, came to Ming Mountain to discover a way to achieve immortality. Combining their 2 names, Yin and Wang, Ying Wang, translates to King of Hell, and that cemented the site as an underworld hotspot. Since then, the place was built to be a shrine to the underworld with several temples showing paintings and sculptures of people being punished for their sins and cast into eternal damnation. It's pretty spooky, but honestly it's pretty cool. It's good craftsmanship. And there is some rich folklore to go with the place. Chinese mythology and beliefs say that the dead must pass 3 tests before they're allowed to cross into the underworld, which sounds exhausting to me. I can't even enjoy the relief of death before you're asked to solve some riddles and pass some tests. The village is kind of like a place to conduct these tests, and now you can actually go to it yourself and do it as a tourist attraction and watch performers act out all the trials. But here's the trials. The first test is passing the Bridge of Helplessness, which does sound a little bit like it's from one of the Dark Souls games. It was built during the Ming Dynasty, and good souls are allowed to pass, while evil ones will fall into the water below. Then, you proceed to Ghost Torturing Pass. Oh, that's a fun place to be, where they present themselves for judgment. Finally, the last test is at the entrance to Tianzi Palace, where the ghost must stand on a certain stone on 1 foot for 3 minutes straight. I don't know why I'm standing on 1 foot when the camera is above my waist. You can't tell what I'm doing. I could be standing on as many feet as I want. A good soul will be able to do it, an evil one will fall over. Now this site now is a popular tourist destination due to its very unique structures and fascinating, if not a little bit horrifying decor. I'd want one of those little statues maybe have in my house. I think they're kind of cool, to be honest. And if you're looking for more hellish haunted spots, terrifying tales of poltergeists, ghosts, ghouls, cryptids, aliens, and all kinds of freaks under the sun and above it, while Top 5 Scary is simply the only place to be. Subscribe and stay scared. Number 4, Kaishiku Grounds. If you go to Kaishiku today, you probably wouldn't think much of it at all. Most notable thing around there is a subway station, and aside from that, there's a vegetable market outside, and you can probably score a pretty decent deal on corn. But if you visited Kaishiku back in the 19th century, however, when it served as an execution grounds for prisoners, you probably wouldn't feel too welcome. Thousands of prisoners were brought to the Kaishiku grounds to serve out their last moments. Every autumn, prisoners were taken through the Zwanwumen, which earned the fun nickname, the Gate of of death at dawn. Awesome. The doomed would then be lined up east to west, their necks stretched by rope to make it easier to chop. Well, that's good. We always want to make it as easy as possible for the guy chopping necks. A singular chop to the neck was considered the easy way out of a one-way trip to Kaishiku. Prisoners accused of more serious crimes would be sentenced to lingchi, which was a horrid punishment of slowly slicing someone many times, leading to it sensationally being dubbed the death of 1,000 cuts by outsiders. These executions were designed to be a public spectacle, something for everybody to come and enjoy, something for the whole family to do when no good movies were playing. Kaishiku was one of the busiest intersections in the outer city of Beijing, so crowds would gather to see these things. Most horrifically about this, though, is that sometimes the prisoners who were executed, their bodies were photographed and made into postcards. Given this sordid history, is it much of a surprise at all that passers-by and visitors claim that they can sometimes see ghostly apparitions making their way through the dark hours of the night, or that you can hear screams at all hours? If you ever visit Beijing and make a stop by Kaishiku, take a photo. The postcards they sell in the gift shop are a little dicey.
Coming in at number 2, we have Griboyedov Canal. The Griboyedov Canal is located in St. Petersburg. It was constructed in 1739 alongside the existing river Krivusha. It is rare that a canal would be haunted, but the haunting is more of a yearly thing that you should avoid at all costs. The story goes back to 1881 with the Russian Empire revolutionary Sofia Perovskaya. She was arrested here and there for the revolutionary talk, but it was her final plan that would become the end of her, when her friend was arrested days before she took over the responsibility of the planned attack on Alexander II. The night before the attack, she helped to assemble the bombs that they were going to use. The attack went off as planned and Alexander II passed away due to her actions. She was quickly captured and was to be trialed for her crimes. Her friend, who was arrested the day prior, wanted to save his own life and turned in the rest of the participants. They were tried and sentenced to hanging. She was the first woman in Russia sentenced for acts of opposing her country. It was reported that her acts inspired other activists around the world in the years following. The day she died was March 22nd. It is now said that each year on the night of March 22nd, the air is misty. If you were to be walking down the canal, you would see the ghost of a young girl walking up and down the canal. She looks completely blue with a red mark on her neck. The worst part of the tale is that those who meet her become cursed. She is a bad omen. It is even rumored that she has caused pedestrians their lives. There have been a large number of mysterious disappearances or people falling into the river late at night when no one is around. Luckily, she can only appear once a year, so as long as you stay clear on that night, you should be safe. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Moscow Kremlin. The Kremlin is a world-famous fortified complex in the center of Moscow. It is the best known of the Kremlins. It includes 5 palaces, 4 cathedrals, along with the enclosing wall and towers. The complex is now the official residence of the President of the Russian Federation, as well as a museum for tourists. Before it was a museum for the public, it was used for the Soviet Union, and remnants of this still remain. The corridors are still lined with brown Soviet tiles, and the walls still have some of the secret communication wires. There have even been bones uncovered during archaeologists' dig in the underground storage rooms. They once buried their own on site. Some of the findings date back to medieval times. There are many mysteries hidden within the vast space of the Kremlin. There are still sections of the Kremlin today that go mostly unused, and many things may have not been uncovered to this date. There have been wars fought and secrets kept within the walls, and some of them have led to restless spirits trying to contact the living. There have been sightings of various ghosts, as well as other unexplained paranormal activity that takes place while guests visit. One of the most common sights is that of an old soldier. At first, he seems to blend in with the other security, but as you begin to notice his old uniform, he will often vanish. He has been seen by different guests on different occasions, but no one has been able to get closer to the spirit to see who they are or why they might be there. There have also been sightings of what is believed to be the royal children playing. They were all baptized on site during the 17th century. The monastery was unfortunately blown up in 1929 to make room for the new buildings. Around that site, you can sometimes hear children playing, and some have even claimed to see children dressed in older looking clothing. It is believed their spirits choose to rest here, as it was where they grew up and had a deep connection to the place. These are just a couple of instances of hauntings around the site. There is so much more to discover and see at the Kremlin.
Number 5. Himuro Mansion. Up first on this list of haunting places in Japan is Himuro Mansion, an oft-repeated folk tale and Japanese urban legend legend that's told with a hushed whisper. It's one of the more famous urban legends of Japan and actually ended up inspiring the Fatal Frame series of horror video games if you're a fan of those. The legend goes that the mansion once belonged to a wealthy and influential family. Noble and well respected, people would speak of rumors of the family's involvement in the occult and their practice of sinister rituals. The most notorious one was known as the strangling ritual, which was performed every half-century to prevent an ages-old dark curse that would engulf the mansion and its inhabitants and spill out into the surrounding lands. This ritual involved selecting a young noble girl from a prestigious lineage. She was then known as the Rope Maiden, and I know what that name sounds like, but it's not for good reasons, trust me. The Rope Maiden on the day of the ritual would be tied and bound to 4 horses, and I promise you don't want to know what comes next, but you can probably imagine. The story goes that when it came time for the last ritual, the maiden was smitten with a member of the family who wanted to run away with her. The patriarch of the family raised his blade to the maiden and then on his own family, and finally himself. Himuro Mansion was abandoned and lost to time. Whether or not it still stands is even a dispute. The legends say that if you find Himuro Mansion and you take photos at it, you'll see the ghosts of all the Rope Maidens of past. This legend is what directly inspired the Fatal Frame series of horror video games, which all revolve around using a camera to take pictures of ghosts in abandoned mansions. So you can see where that idea turned into the final project. They're one of the most terrifying games I've ever played, and if you've never played one, I definitely recommend, especially if you're a fan of Japanese urban legends. And I assume you are, so why you're watching this video. But if you're looking for more Japanese urban legends, or heck, any urban legend around the globe, Top 5 Scary has all of that and then some. In fact, if you can think it up, we've probably done a video or 2 or 3 on it. So hit subscribe, please make sure you hit that bell as well, and would you kindly do that at the end of this video, because I got 4 more scary Japanese urban legends coming for you right now. Number 4, Hirosaki Castle. Coming up next on our list of hot spots to avoid is Hirosaki Castle. It's located in Aomori Prefecture, and it has a history steeped in darkness and ghostly legends. This beautiful castle, surrounded by cherry blossom trees, holds secrets that whisper through its corridors and send shivers down the spines of those who dare to explore. The legends say that Hirosaki Castle is haunted by the tormented spirit of a young maid named Oshichi. In the feudal era, Oshichi served as a maid in the castle's quarters, where she fell deeply in love with a samurai. However, this forbidden love was discovered, and Oshichi's lover was punished and executed for the simple crime of love. Consumed by grief and longing, Oshichi's heart turned to darkness. On the night he was to be executed, she set the castle ablaze. She had such a lust for revenge. Who perished in that castle? Countless lives burned away that day, trapped in the inferno she caused. Tragically, Oshichi herself would be lost to the flame as well, as the castle burned to the ground. Since then, the spirit of Oshichi is said to haunt Hirosaki Castle, seeking solace and eternal reunion with her lost love. Visitors have reported encountering her ghostly figure, a pale and ethereal apparition clad in tattered robes wandering the castle's grounds. Her mournful wails piercing the silence of the night, echoing the empty halls, leaving those who hear it trembling with fear. Now, souls far braver than I have ventured into the castle's depths and have experienced chilling things. Sounds of footsteps that appear to be coming from nowhere but following them, a cold gust of wind that tickles the back of their necks, and an overwhelming feeling of being unwatched by unseen eyes, shadowy figures flickering in the corner of your vision. Some visitors have even claimed to witness the sight of flames dancing in empty rooms, a ghostly reminder of the tragedy that unfolded centuries ago. I'm certainly not brave enough to visit Hirosaki Castle, but if you are, definitely check it out. I just recommend you know exactly where the fire exits are before you go, just in case. If it happened once, it might happen again. That's all I'm saying. Number 3, Himeji Castle and Okiku's Well. Himeji Castle. It's a majestic fortress located in Himeji City. Despite the castle's outward beauty, it hides a dark legend centered around a cursed well, so infamous that it's inspired countless folk tales and the iconic Japanese horror classic Ringu. The legend revolves around a girl named Okiku, who served in Himeji Castle during the feudal era. Okiku possessed a great beauty and caught the attention of a samurai lord. She rejected his advances due to her loyalty to another samurai. Enraged by this rejection, the lord framed Okiku for a crime and accused her of stealing one of 10 precious family heirloom plates. Okiku knew she was innocent, and thus she refused to confess to the crime. The lord was a sadist and treated Okiku with cruel impunity. He tormented her, subjecting her to unspeakable acts, things better left said in polite company like my my YouTube friends. Determined to get her to confess to this false crime, he cast her into a well, where she would fall to her death. This well is now known as Okiku's Well, and it's become a place of dread and sorrow. Do not drink anything that comes out of this thing, because it's said that Okiku's ghost emerges from the well, counting the plates repeatedly in a desperate attempt to prove her innocence and seek justice. Now, legend has it that if the count reaches 9, a terrible curse will befall Himeji Castle and all the inhabitants. Now, if this sounds kind of familiar, and maybe because I mentioned that it's the inspiration for Ringu earlier in this point, this was the inspiration for the iconic Japanese horror film franchise. A cursed videotape haunts anyone who watches it, leading to their gruesome demise in 7 days. The film's ghost, Sadako, or Samara Morgan if you're American, shares similarities with Okiku, including her ghostly emergence from a well and a vengeful desire to seek justice. And you know what? I bet both Okiku and Sadako are actually real sweethearts if you just sit down and get to know them. The well in Himeji Castle continues to captivate visitors who report all sorts of eerie things. Disembodied whispers and overwhelming feeling of unease near the well's vicinity. Are you brave enough? I honestly would not even dare. And also, I gotta work in 7 days, so I can't be watching any haunted videotapes.
Number 2 on this list is the Mustang Caves. These are absolutely wild caves and really don't make a lot of sense. Tripoto says, being one of the world's greatest archaeological mysteries, the Mustang Caves lie in one of the most remote and isolated regions in the Himalayas. The landscape is unlike anything else found in Nepal, with strangely sculptured rock formations comprised of nearly 10,000 den openings perched more than 150 feet above the ground. It's unknown who dug them, since whoever did would have had to scale a near vertical rock to do so, a task almost impossible to accomplish by even experienced climbers. No one knows what their purpose was either, with theories ranging from living quarters to burial chambers. A visit to this mysterious spot will definitely leave you amazed and equally confused. These caves literally make zero sense, guys. It is straight up a cave inside of a mountain. Like, how on earth do you get to that place on the mountain of the cliff face to begin with? And then once you're there, how do you dig a massive hole to get these caves? Explorers have found mummified bodies in these caves before that can be dated back to 3,000 years ago. That is a long time ago, when people wouldn't have presumably had the technology capable of constructing things like this. There's also been a lot of sculptures, paintings, and other things found in these caves. However, none of what has been found indicates which group is responsible for making these things in the first place. They also don't know why they're there either. It's possible that these were just burial sites, but it also seems like overkill to build these cliff caves for just something like that. Others have speculated that these spots are used to practice advanced tantric yoga, or back in the day, perform some sort of ancient rituals. It's likely that we won't ever know the full purpose. And number 1 on this list is Fengdu. Fengdu, or better known as the City of Ghosts, is one of the most spiritually connected places in the world. Atlas Obscura says, the city has been around for nearly 2,000 years, filling it with a spooky sense of the past. Its origin story begins back in the Han Dynasty, when 2 officials decided to run away to the area and live out their lives, where they eventually, the story goes, became immortal. Yin and Wang, the names of the officials, were combined during a later dynasty to mean King of the Underworld. Most of the popular landmarks in the City of Ghosts have names that reference the afterlife. Last Glance at Home Tower, Nothing to be Done Bridge, Ghost Torturing Pass. Covering the sites are statues and other artistic depictions of ghosts and devils, terrifying works that represent what happens to those who haven't lived good lives after theirs is taken from them. Less popular, but no less fascinating, is the theme park haunted house made to represent the terrors within the afterlife, complete with neon paint and vendors hawking scream masks alongside an alleyway. The giant face seen in the hill is called the Ghost King, and it holds the Guinness World Records title as the biggest sculpture carved on a rock. At 138 meters tall and about 217 meters wide, the Ghost King can be seen from all around the city. It's believed that every single person who dies must pass through this city before reaching the full afterlife. In this city are 3 tests for these souls. Wikipedia says that first they must pass the Bridge of Helplessness. This stone bridge was built during the Ming Dynasty and is a test for good and evil. It has 3 arches and only the middle one is used for testing people. There are different protocols for crossing the bridge depending on sex, age, marital status. At the bridge, demons allow or forbid passage. The good are allowed to pass while the evil will be pushed to the water below. This is now done as a tourist attraction, and performers characterized as demons momentarily stop tourists on the bridge but finally allow them access. Then the dead must proceed to Ghost Torturing Pass, where they present themselves for judgment before Yanlao Wang. This is the second test. In this area there are large sculptures of demons. The third test is done at the entrance of Tianzi Palace, where the dead must stand on a certain stone on 1 foot for 3 minutes. According to legend, a virtuous person will be able to do it, while an evil person will fail and be condemned to hell. Clearly a super mysterious spot that you probably weren't supposed to see until you die.
Number 5. The Sulu Archipelago and Sea. The Sulu Archipelago, located in the southwestern regions of the Philippines, is known for its stunning natural beauty, but it is also known for the complex challenges that have risen. The region consists of many small islands, including Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, and Basilan, and is surrounded by the Sulu Sea. The current state of the Sulu Archipelago and its surrounding seas involves a mixture of socio-economic, security, and political concerns. The Sulu Archipelago has been labeled as a level 4 safety risk by the United States Bureau of Consular Affairs, and it is strongly recommended that you do not travel or visit the area. The Sulu Archipelago is currently facing high rates of crime, civil unrest, rebel forces, and abductions. Armed groups are currently and consistently plotting abductions, bombings, and other attacks, with no discretion or care for citizen casualties. They attack with little to no warning and specifically target tourist locations like markets, malls, or government facilities. Rebels are abducting people on land and sea for ransom, bombings, and other attacks that target US citizens, foreigners, civilians, and local government institutions, security forces, and authorities. The US government has a limited ability to help or provide services to civilians, because US government employees have to obtain a special authorization to travel to the affected areas. The Philippine government declared that they are in a state of national emergency. There are a lot of pickpockets, scammers, internet scams, and credit card scams. People are warned to turn down offers of food, drinks, or rides from strangers. Travelers traveling alone have been abducted after they were slipped a strong sedative. Because of the current climate, the Sulu Archipelago is not a safe place to visit, and it is definitely not a safe place to live. I think that too often people think that wars and organized criminal attacks are a thing of the past, or that they're exaggerated. They're not. If anything, the attacks that are shared are often sugar-coated. This is all happening now. People right now, people your age, people my age are being killed, tormented, abducted, essayed, and are living in constant rational fear. A lot more attention definitely needs to be brought to the situation, and the fact that any coverage surrounding the Philippines is so unbelievably minimal and inaccessible is so saddening, and I'm sure frustrating for anyone who has loved ones in the Philippines or lives in the Philippines themselves. Number 4. De La Salle University. De La Salle University is a private Catholic research and educational university. It was established by the Institute of the Brothers of the Christian Schools in 1911 as De La Salle College, which changed to De La Salle University in 1975 when it was granted university status. When it was founded, the De La Salle brothers were nervously reluctant to open the school because Americans insisted that the first school made should only be available to the ruling Filipino elite. However, a school for the upper-class children of ruling elite families who need good moral and spiritual training was opened. By 1921, the school had 425 students. The school offered amazing programs and was widely appreciated for the educational staff and grand accommodations. But during the Second World War, De La Salle was used as a secret shelter for displaced citizens, wounded soldiers, families, and freedom fighters at the beginning of the Japanese occupation. But on January 2nd, in 1942, it was occupied by the Imperial Japanese Army and made into military defense quarters. Several bombings and attacks occurred on campus, but classes did continue until they were discontinued and forced to vacate the campus at the demand of Japanese forces. Most people left the campus, but Egbert Xavier Kelly refused to leave. So on February 7th, 1945, he was abducted by Japanese soldiers, harmed severely, and then killed. On February 12th, just after noon, 20 Japanese soldiers forcibly entered the campus and massacred 16 boys who resided in the chapel of the campus and an additional 25 other residents. There were only 22 survivors. It's now said that the ghosts of the students, teachers, and families are searching for safety. They're still trapped in the same place they died. It has since become a dark tourism location, which a lot of people find to be extremely strange. Tourism that focuses on places with dark or tragic histories, like cemeteries, war sites, churches, or sites that people passed at. Since the site is an active school, tourists are not very welcome to visit the location. Many people do try to sneak in, but it's highly discouraged, and any overly curious onlookers may be arrested, charged with trespassing, or have legal action taken out against them. Number 3. Laperal House and Bahay Nupula. These two houses share a similar dark and horrific history. The Laperal House was built in 1920 and was occupied by the head of the Laperal clans, Don Roberto and Donna Victorina. But during the Second World War, Japanese soldiers took over the home and used it as a den to severely harm victims. Much like the Laperal House, Bahay Nupula was used as a base where they inflicted equally inhumane, despicable acts onto women. During the house's Japanese soldier occupation, soldiers would abduct citizens, accuse them of being American spies, and then harm them in every way known to man. The Laperal House is now considered one of the most haunted houses in the Philippines. Caretakers who work at the house have claimed to see headless ghosts dressed in soldiers' uniforms. They've said that they hear doors opening and closing, and some even said that they can still hear the ear-splitting screams and begs from the people who experienced torment in the house. The Laperal House has become a popular tourist attraction, drawing visitors who are intrigued by its rich history and supernatural oddities. Despite its strange reputation, the Laperal House stands as a testament to Baguio's architectural heritage and continues to fascinate both history enthusiasts and ghost hunters. Bahay Nupula is a deep red house that is labeled as haunted because of the horrendous acts that Japanese soldiers forced onto abducted victims during World War II. At the time, it is said that Filipino guerrillas first used the house as a safe haven, where they would strategize and come together in the trying time. But Japanese soldiers took over the home. They left them without food until they perished. They violated local women without mercy, and they harmed people at random. The house is currently abandoned, but people who live near the area have reported hearing screams and wails calling out for help, and have even seen a group of ghostly Japanese soldiers walking around the house's property. The acts that were committed against innocent people are appalling and heartbreaking. Again, these houses are another example of deeply saddening locations that have become dark tourism attractions.
Coming in at number 2, we have Laperal House. The Laperal House was built by Roberto Laperal in the 1930s. During World War II, the house was used by Japanese soldiers. They were reportedly a nasty group of brutes. They attacked local women, tortured suspected ties, and even ended their life once they received any information that they had. The house is said to have seen many horrors due to all of this, and the home was never the same after the soldiers left. Those who had been there within this time warned others to stay away. The house transferred ownership after the death of the head of the Laperal clan. They attempted to maintain the home, but the years and horrors do show on the home's old exterior. The house has withstood much more than those around it, both man-made and natural disasters. To everyone's surprise, the house was still standing after the deadly earthquake of 1990. In 2013, the home was turned into a museum. It was at this point that we started to hear more details about the hauntings inside. The show has been visited on many ghost haunting shows, along with being featured in a film. Those who have visited the house have told of what they found and why the house is visited often by paranormal investigators. One visitor claimed that they heard screams coming from the lower sections of the home. They rushed to go see if someone was hurt, but they found nothing. As they read more about the home, they believe this could have been linked to where the torture happened during the war. Others felt a dark presence in various sections of the home, cold spots or a feeling of sadness that disappeared as quickly as they had felt it. Some said they felt watched, like there is an entity in the home that no one can see, but it is watching all who visit closely. One man claimed he heard water running in the rooms, but when he went to turn it off there was nothing there, not even a source for any water to be coming from. The home is haunted by the ghosts of the past, but might also hold an ancient entity that causes you to feel watched. Either way, this is not a home I'll be visiting anytime soon. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Manghit Cave. Manghit Cave got its name from the smell of the accumulated bat droppings inside the cave. Located in the central Philippines, this is a scary location due to more than the hauntings. Many people are scared of entering dark and possibly unstable caves, but this one contains more than just the fear of confined spaces. The cave is popular by those who like to explore deep into caves in their spare time, but do it at your own risk. The cave is said to be haunted by lost caving groups. The cave does not offer much light, and the deeper you go, the more lost you get. There have been a number of groups that have gone lost throughout the years with no remains ever recovered. There are so many hidden corners within its maze you will never be found. Those who explore it today have encountered a number of paranormal occurrences. Some report seeing shadows not cast by them or their group like there is someone else with them. Others have heard footsteps scrambling around as if in panic. Finally, the further in you travel, the more you hear a distant scream of help. Often only one of 2 members of your team will hear this. No matter how far towards the voice you go, it will keep seeming out of reach. This causes people to go further and further into the caving system until their team bring them to their senses to head back. Those who have experienced this believe it may be how the others have gone missing. Some say there may be a demon living deep within the cave looking to bring the lost souls to feast on.
Number 5 on this list is Dungtse Lhakhang. This temple is located in Bhutan, an often overlooked nation that's nestled between Nepal, Bangladesh, and China. This nation is largely populated with Buddhist monks and is known for its monasteries, fortresses, and incredible landscape. The country itself is already shrouded in mystery, and this place is probably the best example of that. Holidify writes, Dungtse Lhakhang was built by the Thang Tong Gyalpo in the year 1433. It's said that the monument was constructed on the body of a monster that was causing harm to the inhabitants. There are mysterious stories about this place, and locals believe that the divine power of the temple would retain the demon from coming back to life. The building is in the form of a diagram mandala, and different floors represent the earth, the heaven, and hell. The horror-inspired frescoes on the walls leave visitors dazzled and add to the mystic charm of this place. Dungtse Lhakhang is carefully preserved, and it requires special permission from the authorities to get into the landmark. Any place that's guarded heavily like this and not allowing the public, plus it has deep ties to the devil and hell, obviously needs to make the list. Also, the entire legend surrounding it, where it was built on the body of a monster, already adds to the mystery surrounding this spot. Stories have come out of this place with some of the very few people who have been inside of it being met with spiritual visitors. Potentially, this strange temple is actually a portal of sorts to connect us of the living world to those of the dead. It's impossible to say, but it also doesn't help that the authorities won't let us in to explore it. If you do manage to find a way inside, then you'll need to bring a flashlight though. There's no lights in this place at all, and it's said to be completely dark on the inside, which just adds to the mystery again. Number 4 on this list is the Plain of the Jars. Located in Laos, this site is definitely a weird one. A bunch of stone jars, 2,000 of them to be exact, all scattered throughout the fields of this hilly terrain. These jars are very sizable and made of pure rock. In fact, the word jars is pretty generous because it's basically just a bunch of rocks with holes on the top of them. What they're used for, who put them here, and how they got here though are all a big mystery. Maybe the most interesting thing about these jars is the story with World War II. In World War II, the site in question was heavily bombed. One would imagine that some stones with holes in them would be obliterated from a heavy barrage of bombs, but they weren't. In fact, it didn't look like they took any damage at all. Some people believe this is because these jars have a deep spiritual connection to them. This lends itself to the origin of these jars, where people think that they were used for some interesting sacrificial rituals. Granted, some other people believe that they were used to make wine. A bunch of jars to sacrifice people, or a bunch of jars to get drunk off of. I guess you guys be the judge. Number 3 on this list is the Ryukyu Islands. These islands are a chain of islands that are located off of Japan. The islands, although they're very beautiful and have some amazing scenery, aren't really mysterious in their own rights. It's what's located in the water beneath them though that has a lot of mystery and lore surrounding it. Under the water of the Ryukyu Islands are what many believe to be an Atlantis-like city. It was discovered in 1995, so very recently considering human history. At first, this ancient city was thought to be just a naturally formed monument, a rock formation that just happened to be thrown together by the earth underwater. However, as more experts looked at it, the theory that it was man-made started to gain a lot of traction. It's a mysterious pyramid-looking structure that nobody can really explain. Nobody knows how it got there or what it was used for, if it was man-made. Also, think about it if it actually was man-made like people are suggesting. Either we made it underwater, which makes absolutely no sense at all, or we made it so long ago that the water levels rose over top of it. Meaning that we're talking about something thousands and thousands of years old. What the heck were these people building here thousands and thousands of years ago, and why were they doing it?
Number 2, Ozone Disco. On March 18, 1996, at 11:35 p.m., the Philippines witnessed one of the deadliest nightclub disasters in its history, the Ozone Disco tragedy. The incident occurred at the Ozone Disco, a popular nightclub located in Quezon City, Metro Manila. It was a night that would forever haunt the nation's collective memory, leaving behind a legacy of grief, lessons learned, and calls for stricter safety regulations. That horrific night, the club was packed with hundreds of excited people, celebrating the end of the school year. The nightclub had gained a reputation for its trendy music and vibrant atmosphere, which drew a young and energetic crowd. The tragedy unfolded when an electric malfunction led to a massive fire which spread rapidly throughout the disco. The nightclub's inadequate safety measures exacerbated the situation. There was only one narrow exit. The club was at least 300 people over capacity, and the club itself did not have adequate emergency exits. As the flames engulfed the nightclub, screams for help filled the air. People clamored to locked doors, ending up in piles as the hot blazes tore at their skin. Tragically, 162 lives were lost that night, and countless others suffered injuries. Families were torn apart, and the nation was left in mourning. The Ozone Disco tragedy serves as a grim reminder of the importance of stringent safety standards in public establishments. The aftermath of the Ozone Disco tragedy prompted widespread outrage and calls for accountability. Investigations revealed a shocking lack of adherence to fire safety regulations and building codes. The nightclub's owners were subsequently charged with criminal negligence, and several government officials faced disciplinary actions for failing to enforce safety standards. The tragedy also led to significant changes in the Philippines' approach to fire safety and building regulations. It prompted the government to revisit and strengthen existing laws, ensuring that public establishments adhere to safety standards more rigorously. Moreover, the disaster prompted greater awareness among the public about the importance of fire safety and the need for responsible business practices. The Ozone Disco tragedy is a painful chapter in the Philippines' history, but it has not been forgotten. Each year on March 18th, memorial services and remembrances are held to honor the victims and reflect on the lessons learned. The tragedy serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of negligence and the critical importance of prioritizing safety in public places. The abandoned disco has since been boarded up. You cannot legally enter the building where such a tragedy occurred. People who have managed to disregard the public trespassing laws have described hearing the screams of victims, a clawing at the door, and the faint sound of crackling music, sounding as though the notes themselves were burning into ash. Number 1. Manila Film Center. The Manila Film Center is an iconic and controversial structure. It stands as a symbol of both the Philippines' aspirations in the world of cinema and the dark shadows that sometimes loom over the industry. Located on the longshore of Manila Bay, this controversial building was constructed as a venue for the 1982 Manila International Film Festival, an event that planned to showcase both Filipino and international cinema. However, the story behind its construction and the subsequent events have left a permanent mark on the country's history. It was built during the regime regime of the then President Ferdinand Marcos, and the construction of the Manila Film Center was surrounded by secrecy and controversy. To meet the tight deadline for the festival's opening, an estimated 4,000 workers were employed, working round-the-clock in hazardous conditions. Tragically, a portion of the building collapsed on November 17, 1981, burying several workers under the rubble, still alive. At the demand of the government to expedite the center's completion, the workers' bodies, alive and dead, were covered in cement and left entombed within the structure. Despite this tragedy, the Manila Film Center still opened its doors on January 18, 1982, with much fanfare. It became a hub for film enthusiasts and filmmakers, hosting international film screenings and competitions, and most of them had no idea that they were standing on top of a mass grave. However, the controversy surrounding its construction continued to haunt the venue. Rumors of paranormal activities, particularly ghosts of the workers who lost their lives during the construction, further fueled the Manila Film Center's infamy. In the years that followed, the Manila Film Center faced challenges, including changes in ownership and management. It fell into disrepair and was largely abandoned, becoming a dilapidated and spooky relic of the past. Various proposals for its renovation and revitalization were put forward, but none of them came to fruition. Despite its troubled history, the Manila Film Center remains a significant piece of architectural heritage in the Philippines. In recent years, there have been renewed efforts to restore and repurpose the building. Some have suggested transforming it into a cultural and arts center, while others see its potential as value for events.
Number 5 on this list is the Forbidden City. The Forbidden City was constructed in the early 1400s for the Ming Dynasty. This palace served as the base of operations for any political ongoings that China was involved in for several hundred years. It was also the home to the Chinese emperors and their families. The complex is massive, consisting of 980 buildings, 8,886 rooms, and being 178 acres in area. The Forbidden City was listed as a World Heritage Site in 1987 and is no longer used for political business, but now acts as a tourist attraction. This palace is estimated to be worth over 70 billion US dollars, which makes it the most valuable palace and piece of real estate on the entire planet. I imagine that when they were valuing this palace though, they didn't factor in that it's deeply haunted. The Forbidden City has been home to many Chinese emperors during its existence. During its time, it's seen them partake in a wide array of atrocities. The murder of Chinese slaves has happened countless times. Granted, this hasn't always been done by an authoritative figure, but skirmishes between servants and slaves have happened many times throughout this palace's history. And also, it hasn't just been slaves, but others have been murdered within these walls too. Many people speculate on some of the sinister acts that have happened here, but many of those acts have never been proven. This leads to the secrecy that has shrouded this place since its construction. Nowadays, this Forbidden City is haunted by several ghosts and ghouls. One of the most famous sightings was from a guard. They swore that while they were on duty, they were approached by a lady in white without any face at all. This legend has been echoed by some of the other people over the years, although this lady's origin is unknown. Many people also report the sound of music coming from thin air as they walk through the palace. They also hear the laughter and crying from other women that can't be seen. It's believed that these are the ghosts of some of the concubines that used to live in this palace. The Forbidden City is one of the coolest palaces in the world, but we have to remember that it was forbidden for a reason. Number 4 on this list is Tuen Mun Road. This road is a highway in Hong Kong that links Tuen Mun and Suan Wan. The highway is only 19.4 kilometers long and for the most part is well kept. It was constructed in 1977 and during its short time of being active has developed quite the legend around it. This road is considered to be one of the most haunted roads on the entire planet, and that is largely due to the significant amount of death that it's seen. In 1978, it had its first fatal crash, and since then it has amassed massive numbers of accidents. In fact, this road has had hundreds of accidents, with many of them being fatal. Some people blame poor road design, but the surviving victims from the crashes, they blame ghosts. This road is believed to be haunted by a bunch of spirits. It's said that these accidents keep happening because the ghosts will appear in the middle of the road. Upon first glance, people will think that they're about to hit a person, swerve to get out of the way, and effectively cause an accident themselves. The biggest problem with this road is that it keeps getting more and more haunted. Like a virus, the people who die from spirits then become the spirits that are haunting the road. Nowadays, there are hundreds of spirits that haunt this road and can appear at any time right in the middle of it, causing chaos and death. One of the most notable accidents that happened here was that of a bus in 2003 where 21 separate people died. This highway is a hazard to say the least, and one that I would avoid going down if I was ever visiting China. Number 3 on this list is Fengdu. Fengdu had to be included in this list because it's also literally called the Ghost City. It is a massive collection of shrines and temples that are dedicated to the afterlife located on the Ming Mountain. This place was built over 2,000 years ago and is deeply rooted in Chinese culture. The reason that it's called the Ghost City isn't just because people believe it to be haunted today, but because of a legend that took place many years ago. 2 imperial officers named Ying Changshen and Wang Fangping went to the mountain to practice Taoism. Whilst they were at this place, the pair performed a ritual to become immortal. When you combine their 2 names into Ying Wang, you get the translation King of Hell. This goes along with the stories that these 2 immortal beings will drag people down to the underworld. This site and these 2 immortals are so critical in Chinese culture because it's believed that every single spirit will pass through this place when they die. That's right guys, Fengdu is the location where a spirit will go immediately after their physical body ceases to function. There are 3 tests that the dead will go through before moving on to the next life. First, they must pass the Bridge of Helplessness, then they go through the Ghost Torturing Pass, and then finally they will wait at the front of Xianzi Palace. It's here that the ghost must stand on a stone for 3 whole minutes. If you are to be dragged down to the underworld, then it's at this time that it will take place. All of this ghostly activity has made this place very haunted. People have reported sinister laughs and strange noises coming from this place at all hours of the day. People have also reported hearing blood-curdling screams coming from nowhere. They think that these screams are coming from the torturing of those ghosts. If all of this is true, then there really is no point of visiting this place. If all of this is true, then there really is no point in visiting because regardless of how you spin it, we're all gonna end up there one day anyways.
Coming in at number 5, we have Ozone Disco. What a name, I kinda wanna go. In March of 1996, a tragic accident happened in Quzon City's Ozone Disco. The local universities had just done their yearly graduation ceremonies. The students were looking to celebrate and there was a party being thrown for them at the disco. There were around 350 guests attending that night, even though the building had only been cleared to safely hold 35 people. Due to the large amount of people in such a small place, when the fire broke out, they did not stand much chance of escape. Tragically, around 200 people did not make it out that night. Not only did the fire consume the lives of many, but others were trampled in the chaos of trying to escape. The one fire exit the building had been blocked by the building next door, meaning the large amount of people who fled to it to escape became trapped. It was reported that when entering the building to look for survivors, the bodies were piled up waist high. Survivors of the fire explained how around midnight sparks started flying from the DJ booths shortly after smoke appeared. Partygoers thought it was part of the experience, that it was all pyrotechnics to mark the new day. This meant that many did not flee as soon as they should have. All of this combined into a huge tragedy that claimed the lives of so many who were just about to start their lives. Since the incident, the club has been closed and abandoned. However, those who are around the club at night have witnessed some paranormal activity. Some have heard music coming from the club's doors or seen disco lights from a distance. You might think these are just kids who have snuck into party, but others have heard disturbing screams for help, but as they got closer to investigate, the screams fade away. There is a clear warning to those who might try to visit the place today that it's not safe. You might meet a paranormal spirit angry from the tragedy, or you might have a dangerous accident of your own. Coming in at number 4, we have Malacañang Palace. Malacañang Palace is the White House of the Philippines. It is the official residence and principal workplace for the President of the Philippines. It was originally built in 1750, so it has a long history, making it perfect for some paranormal happenings. The building has been home to many important people, but has also been a part of revolutions within the country, leading to many tragic passings on the property. In particular, there is one story that during one of the revolts by the people, they stormed and seized the home. They found one presidential worker who is now unknown and made their own justice. Although this is not a confirmed story, it is often told to explain one of the paranormal guests who has been pictured outside of the home. They have been named the Headless Ghost. The photo captured shows the outside of the palace with a headless figure facing the camera. It is thought that this poor soul was separated with his head before passing and now walks the halls searching for it. He is not the only ghost that has been spotted on the premises though. There have been sightings of former presidents, such as Manuel Quezon and Manuel Roxas. There is also a report where Governor Amy Marcos, daughter of Ferdinand Marcos, actually saw Quezon's ghost at one point during her father's presidency. I guess when you dedicate your life to serving as president, it is hard to let go of the place you call home. If you were to visit, maybe keep your camera handy. You never know who you might just see. Coming in at number 3, we have Clark Air Base Hospital. Clark Air Base Hospital was used during World War II and the Vietnam War. It now lays abandoned on a redeveloped Air Force base. It is said that as soon as you enter the destroyed building, you instantly feel the paranormal energy that belongs there. The locals believe it to be cursed and dare not enter. Due to this, it is seen as the most haunted hospital in the country. The hospital has been ravaged by time, most parts overgrown with greenery, with others simply falling apart. The hospital today does still attract ghost hunters. Due to the amount of pain and suffering that occurred during its time, there are plenty of lost spirits trapped. A number of visitors have reported hearing voices echo through the empty halls of the hospital. Some hear screams. It is said that the voices of those trapped are of the soldiers who lost their lives in the war. It seems they feel they have unfinished business in the world. Many would have left behind their families to serve their country. These are not the only patients still staying there though. The first floor ward was home to the hospital's pediatric center. People have heard the screams of newborn babies and children laughing. One security guard even heard the running footsteps of what sounded like a child. This entity ran straight past him one night while on patrol. He has since refused to patrol within the hospital walls. The hotel did still operate after the war until a nearby volcano erupted, covering the hospital in ash. This was taken as a sign by the locals that nature was warning them to stay away. There are also those who ignore the warnings and venture inside. Just be warned, it seems to have a habit of causing tragedy.
Number 2 on this list is the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China is one of the 7 wonders of the world and truly a sight to behold. The total length of the Great Wall of China is roughly 21,196 kilometers. This wall was built over thousands of years, with the initial construction starting in the 7th century BC. Its purpose was largely to act as a defense mechanism between other nations and also to monitor what was coming in and out of their country. This wall is massive, more massive than anything we can really comprehend. In fact, to put it in perspective, I'm filming this in Toronto, Canada right now. Traveling to China from here is roughly 11,000 kilometers, meaning that the length of the Great Wall is long enough to go all the way to China and then come all the way back. Due to its massive size and means of construction, it's estimated that 1 to 2 million people died from just the construction of this wall alone. These 1 to 2 million people who died whilst making this wall are said to haunt it to this day. The ghosts of their souls still linger around various sections of the wall, with many sightings happening throughout the years. People have seen these ghosts laboring away or just standing at the top of the wall looking down upon them. They've also heard the noises of somebody working or the moans of someone in pain with no person in sight. 1 to 2 million people is a lot of people to have died from this ambitious project. That amount of untimely death has to leave something behind, and I wouldn't be surprised if this Great Wall truly was haunted. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world, so I won't tell you to never visit, but if you do, then just be wary. Number 1 on this list is the Xiaoying Pun Community Complex. This community complex, which is located in Hong Kong, was listed as one of the most haunted places in China for quite some time. It started off, as many haunted buildings do, as an old mental institute. This institute was built in 1892 and operated as a mental hospital until World War II. During World War II, this building was used as a hospital for any people fighting, but then in 1947 went back to its initial purpose of housing those who were clinically insane. It continued to function like this until 1971, when it was eventually closed down and the building was abandoned. As with many mental hospitals from that era, there were a lot of human rights violations that took place. Couple that with some of the death that it saw in its walls, plus its abandonment, and the legend of a potential haunting started to run rampant. In the recent years, this place has been converted into a community center, but even this immense renovation hasn't stopped up the ghostly sightings. The most famous apparition is that of a man dressed in traditional Chinese clothing. It's said that his presence isn't uncommon, and he will often engage people in conversations if they're by themselves. It should also be noted that the mental hospital before it closed down was ravaged by 2 separate fires. Some people died during these blazes, and the spirits of those burn victims have reportedly been spotted in the past. People have said that they've seen them standing at the end of the hall staring at them, completely burned and bloodied. With a history like this location has, it's no wonder that spirits are still sighted walking among it to this day.